right, I am back with a new video that is certainly different than normal, not about a specific game. I am in the wake of my most disliked video ever here in the last 48 hours about Path of Exile's Endgame. It's been interesting. Quinn, the big RPG guy, reacted to it and like roasted it. And then, of course, that made its way to Asmongold, who did a video, and he agreed with me, which was surprising. I will circle back to PoE soon. I do agree with criticism. I need to give it more time. I maintain a lot of the points I made are true and reflected by others. But yeah, I'll circle back to that. But one thing that bothers me whenever something like this happens, you know, here, Reddit, wherever, Twitter, is a lot of people just coming up and saying things that aren't true. Like, if you don't agree with my takes or my opinions on this or that, that's fine. But what I keep seeing are things that are just straight up not true, like positions I have not taken, things that are out of context, or things that are not quite as crazy as people are making it out to be. So I went through and I made a list of the things I see come up most often in regard to all the comments start with like, isn't this the guy who ... insert thing here. I know nobody making those comments is going to read this. If they do, they're probably just going to dislike this video. This is mostly catharsis for me because it's very frustrating. If you're a loyal viewer here, read my writing, and I think you'll understand some of these or agree with them. But I'm just going to go through this list and sort of go into each of these points. There are a few that are perfectly true and valid, but I will address those as well. Let's start with, I liked Concord and was shocked it failed. That is a common narrative. I saw someone say, I gave Concord an 8 out of 10. Never reviewed Concord, have essentially never said a single positive thing about that game since it debuted. The only remotely positive thing I said was gameplay is actually like kind of okay. Playing it didn't feel like terrible. It just didn't stand out enough. And when I was, quote, shocked it failed, that is based on a tweet where I was genuinely stunned that it was not going to break 700 concurrent players on Steam. That is not because I thought it was so good and it should have done wild numbers past that. It's because that's like genuinely stunning for a game that was supposed to be this high profile when a bad launch, quote unquote, is Suicide Squad with 13,000 concurrent viewers. Not breaking 700 for a game like this, which did turn out to be one of, possibly the biggest failure in video game history, being shut down in 2 weeks. Yes, I was surprised that happened, but I was not surprised that a game like that failed because it never looked good. It never looked good from the start. Another one, I liked Suicide Squad, and I'm a huge Suicide Squad defender. Not really. I gave Suicide Squad a 6.5 out of 10, which in the context of the video game industry is a pretty failing grade. That is if your game gets a 65, you're in rough shape on Metacritic. I am the type of person who will at least try to stick with games in this genre, the looter shooter genre. I did find some aspects of Suicide Squad, kind of redeeming. I did enjoy somewhat build crafting and making, kind of unique builds. There was something somewhat fun about the bouncy around rooftop gameplay, even though it got really, really samey. Storyline was abysmal. Terrible storyline. The whole concept of the game at baseline is horrible. This idea of killing the Justice League, this idea of this big open world where everyone can fly around and being a looter shooter or Captain Boomerang and King Shark of shotguns, none of this made sense, especially over, making an Arkham game or something. So I did try to stick with it. I wanted to, I was sort of the last man standing and covering it, although it was mostly about how bad it was doing. And then I quit with season 2 and I'm like, even I can't do this anymore. Like, interest is so low, even hate playing this or whatever is not worth it. So I liked Marvel's Avengers. I certainly stuck with Marvel's Avengers longer than other games that did suffer somewhat similar problems to Suicide Squad with some exceptions. Should not have been a looter. Again, like finding things like Hulk's ribcage and stuff was not fun. It was kind of fun to make different builds for these characters, but the loot aspect of this was terrible. The activities were generally very, very bad. And by the time they started adding things like raids, the game wasn't really suited for that. And most people were gone anyway. So it was almost impossible to find groups. There was a core here that I think they did really well. I think the individual character kits were good, and it was easy to see how you could have taken an individual Iron Man or an individual Thor and made a specific game just about them. But this idea of jamming all these different heroes into this big, long-term plan hero shooter was not a good idea. And I am certainly not shocked it failed. I did play it longer than most people, but I am hardly Marvel's Avengers' biggest defender. Let's see, moving down, I gave Dragon Age an 8.5, Dragon Age the Veilguard. That is true. I did give it that. This is not that crazy. Looking at the game's reception, it had an 82 Metacritic, so that is very, very close to what I gave it. This is a big culture war thing, and a lot of the pushback I get from people are kind of the anti-woke crowd for one reason or another, which I get because I'm, I'm pretty progressive, I'm pretty liberal, and I'm not shy about that. But again, even then, my positions get misinterpreted here. For Dragon Age, this idea that this game was just so abysmally awful, above other games, this is one that a lot of the people just did not play. Like most of the harshest critics of the game, I can't believe you gave this game this score, did not play for more than an hour. When you look at the reception for the game more widely, the star ratings on consoles, the Steam reviews, it's, 70, 75, 80% positive, something like that usually. Of course, the Metacritic user score is a 3.6, where you do not have to prove you own the game. If you think that's too high for Dragon Age, I get it. I don't think Dragon Age was like the biggest success. We haven't really heard anything about sales. It did not really get nominated for Game Awards and stuff, so I'm not calling it a big hit. But me personally, giving it 8.5 was, I don't think that's crazy, unless you're in this sort of circle where you believe this was the worst game ever. Probably based on a lot of people not playing it and a lot of YouTubers just sort of ripping it. Moving on. I gave Starfield a 9.5. I regret this one. of the things on the list here, I can't really excuse this one. I do regret that score now. At the time, I don't know. I kind of got wrapped up in the world. I did enjoy combat. I do think that was pretty solid combat, especially evolving from Bethesda's really terrible combat history. And then I came out the very end. The only thing I really hated was New Game Plus. I liked exploring planets for a while until you realize kind of how copy pasted some things are. But certainly the further I get away from Starfield, the less I like it, and the more I do realize that score was too high. This happened to a couple of us. Like Gene Park gave Starfield a perfect score, and like it is not a game that I would say ages well, certainly, especially compared to other big releases that have come up. And that is one that, if you think that's a bad score and I was wrong about that, I'll give you that one. I didn't put this one on here, but I just remembered. I hate Baldur's Gate 3, and I think it's mid. Nope. No, not at all. I fully understand why that is such a great game that people love and why it won Game of the Year. I did not personally like the TTRPG setup of it with, moving around the map, the turn-based combat. That is just not something I enjoy playing. And messing around with difficulty and trying different things here and there, like, it just wasn't really clicking for me. I gave it like 30 hours, although I know this is a game you can potentially put hundreds of hours into. I really, really like the storyline, really, really like the characters. I get why people are really praising that game. It just wasn't for me. And when I say something isn't for me, that is not me saying something is bad. This kind of circles back to Path of Exile, where it's like, I'm not really enjoying this end game. I'm not saying explicitly the end game is terrible for all people. It just, most of what I try to convey is my personal experience. Maybe I didn't do that well enough in the Path of Exile video, but when I'm giving my opinion, it is my opinion. So if you think it's a bad take, fine, but don't say I'm saying something that I'm not saying and have not said. Speaking of, let's keep going. I think we're about halfway through. I hate Stellar Blade. God, this one comes up so much and it's so annoying. I really like Stellar Blade a lot. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I said I would probably push that to an 8.5 or a 9 once they added all the New Game Plus stuff, which I thought was really, really well done. They added skills. They added more creative ways to play the game and change things around. I thought that was really well done. It's one of my top games of the year. The reason people think I hate Stellar Blade is because what I hate about it, first of all, is that it's been used as a cudgel in this big culture war thing where it's like, this is our game. Like, you woke guys like hate this game and you can't handle how hot Eve is. And like, I don't like that like a good game is being used in that way because it sucks because like it is a good game. I got in a big fight with people about how there was this thing at the very beginning where Shift Up put like some little tiny piece of triangle fabric in one of the swimsuits, and it became this big thing of censorship and how dare you, the developer, do this. And then eventually, they said like this was our intent, like we didn't censor anything, but eventually they just released alternate versions of those suits. And what I said was like, I don't love just catering to that group and like being bullied into thinking being gaslit into saying you censored your own game. Like that is what I didn't like. They've added dozens and dozens of sexy outfits this, and I never had a problem with there being sexy outfits in this game. Eve looking the way she looks, there is room for all types of games, non-traditional characters, conventionally attractive characters. There's a wide range of games you can play, and I do not begrudge games, this one, including the next game we'll talk about, just for that. The other thing I said that people, kept circling back to was that Stellar Blade being the highest user-rated game of the entire PS5 generation seemed a bit extreme. It did seem a bit extreme. Like, I really like Stellar Blade. Is it the best game of the entire PS5 generation? That seems like a stretch. And people are like, oh, how did you vote this as one of the top games of the year, but you said this? It's like, there's a difference between me liking Stellar Blade as one of the best games of this year and saying, yeah, I agree, this is the best game of the PS5 generation. Like, those are not incongruent statements. And then just generally, I played probably 60 hours of that game, did 2 full playthroughs. Like, I really like that game. I recommend it. It's a very fun action game, divorced from all this other stuff. Related to this, the First Descendant. The main complaint there was that I thought the characters, it was bad that they were sexy or something. There was a tweet I made where they started selling like summer swimsuit outfits, and I bought one. Like, people are like, oh, he thinks this sucks. I'm like, I literally owned it. And I took a screenshot of it because I thought it was funny. And it's like a swimsuit for Viessa where it's like from behind, it's literally just like, she almost looks completely naked except for like a little thing like on her butt. And I'm like, the next step for this is just nudity. Like, and people viewed that as me being like, tisk, tisk, tisk. Like, I'm so puritanical. Like, this is wrong. When I just thought it was funny. Like, it is very funny to see just how hard they were willing to lean into that concept. And they've just kept doing that since then. My favorite thing there is people were just complaining about like pieces of fabric hanging, and they removed it. And like, that wasn't really like a, you censored your thing. It's just like, oh yeah, guys, sure, we'll do whatever you want, and like catering to that group. And again, I think that's fine. And again, I put 300 hours into the First Descendant. Kind of shocking even to me now, but like the point is like, I did not dislike that game. I do not care what its characters look like one way or the other. Like, I think there are room for all types of games. Circling back to Concord, that game did not look ugly because of, the attractiveness of the characters. The aesthetic was horrific. Like, there's a difference between like attractive characters and just the worst aesthetic you've ever seen. So there's art direction, and there's like, are these characters sexy enough? Which I find it kind of an exhausting debate, but it's one that keeps coming up. All right, let's switch to TV for a minute. I loved The Acolyte. Again, one of the biggest culture war crazy things of the year, where there was, all these complaints about that it was breaking lore, or breaking canon, which ultimately it never was once you go through and explained everything. A lot of pushback for, its leads, and the cast got a lot of racist harassment, and everyone's like, it's not racism. And the star is like, I've received a lot of racist harassment. So like, what? I liked parts of The Acolyte a lot. I think it is a good idea for Disney to try to get out of the Skywalker era and do something in the High Republic, which is not related to the Skywalker era, even if at the end they put Yoda in there. Did not think this show started strong. I did not like the first 3 or 4 episodes very much. I do not like the twin concept. I did not think that was particularly good. What I really, really liked about it was the introduction of a brand new Sith, Quimir, or the mysterious dude who you got to see was under the mask eventually. Even though it wasn't really a surprise it was him, it was still very cool to see that kind of character represented. He was one of the best new villains I think I've seen introduced across, Star Wars, essentially. I would argue he's probably cooler than Kylo Ren. He was just a really kind of neat, mysterious character I was interested to see more of. Episode 5, where he just butchers a bunch of Jedi in some really, really good lightsaber fights. Awesome. One of the best Star Wars episodes I've ever seen. The rest of the show was like, okay. I thought it was pretty good. I would have watched the season 2, but, I don't know if I'd put it in the top half of all Star Wars shows, above all these other ones. I think Skeleton Crew, which is less controversial, is really, really good, even if no one is watching it. I'm not, the biggest cheerleader, but parts of that show were really awesome. And then the rare instance of sort of the more, liberal side of media, thinking I'm, very anti-woke and Mr., man-hating dude of course this guy doesn't like this, was people saying that I hated Agatha All Along. I thought that would fail. I wrote an article saying I thought it would probably inevitably be the MCU's least watched series because it did not have any major stars attached to it, which we've seen is a big detriment to both Star Wars and Marvel projects. Like Agatha Harkness is, the 400th most important character in Marvel lore. So even being a spinoff of WandaVision, not great. The show did go on to do very well, and I really like it. It is probably the best MCU show, if not second best or third best. We still don't know what viewership was. It did chart on the top 10 list a couple of times. I don't think it's the lowest, but we don't have hard data about that. I think something like Miss Marvel is probably below it, but again, I don't think there's like something explicit that says, oh, this was a top 3 viewership show. It still doesn't seem like that, but the show is a success. It deserved to be a success. It was great. I like it a lot. Okay, back to games. Sorry if this is annoying. A lot of this has just been building up for a very long time, and it's very, it exhausts me. So I just sort of want to get it all out there at once. I'm almost done. A few more things. I don't play ARPGs. I'm a tourist in the genre. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not the hardest core grinder. I have indeed put 2,500 hours across Diablo 2, 3, and 4. I've been playing Diablo since, 2005. It's 20 years in some form or another. So I am not new to this genre at all. That is not a thing. I am pretty new to Path of Exile. I put 50 hours into Path of Exile a couple of years ago, and it was fine. It just didn't really kind of hook me then. So yeah, I'm pretty much new starting into Path of Exile here, but this idea that I've never played ARPGs, that's just not true. I still play Destiny in 2024. That's always brought up. This guy plays Destiny. Yeah, I play Destiny. I'm not going to make an apology for this. I played Destiny for 10 years. I like Destiny through all its ups and downs, and there have been many, many downs. I do not think you can classify me as a, quote, Destiny glazer. I can give you 1,000 negative articles. I'm not even exaggerating. Probably 1,000 negative articles I've written over the course of 10 years about what's going on with Destiny, what it can do better. But I wouldn't write that. I wouldn't cover Destiny so religiously if I didn't care about it, if I didn't like the game. I will cover Destiny until it shuts down, which may happen given the way things are going. But sure, if you want to use that as a criticism, yeah, I play Destiny. I'm sure you play some game that some people think is lame. I don't know. What are you going to do about that? I don't like hard games. I'm soft. Go back to Fortnite, blah, blah, blah. That's not true. The Path of Exile thing was I think some things are just unfair in terms of difficulty. Things that Grinding Gears just nerfed. So that was not exactly a unique position, but I've heard this a lot of times. This kind of goes back to this big games journalists are bad at games, which it sucks because so often we are given 4 or 5 days to beat some massive game without hints, without a guide. We have to do that. We have to write our review. We have to write our own guides to help other people when they're playing a game. Some games, that's fine. Other games are Elden Ring, and not knowing, literally anything about, the map, the secrets and strategies, any of that, you do it yourself. For me personally, the biggest issue is time. for me, where for my job, I have to cover a ton of games and TV shows and sometimes movies. So like I don't have time to devote to one specific game or genre. Like, yes, obviously I do loot shooters more than most, but I don't have the time to like grind really hard and get amazing at Marvel Rivals or, you know, become one of the top Diablo players in the world like Elon Musk. Like a lot of reasons streamers and YouTubers are so popular is because they can do that, because, you know, they do devote themselves to one game or one genre. So a lot of them are going to be extremely good players, which that's great. It's double-edged sword, because if that game becomes less popular, you can be kind of screwed. But like this idea that, you know, all games journalists, which much include me, are bad at video games is very stupid. It's like saying, this is the final point here. The worst rumor about me is that I'm the guy who played Cuphead bad, the famous video of the journalist who could not get past the Cuphead tutorial. Not me. That is Dean Takahashi of VentureBeat, who is not even a games journalist. I don't know what the hell happened there, but I know that this is the story that will get brought up until the end of time. There's also this video of there's someone at Polygon playing Doom badly. This is exhausting because like these like 2 or 3 videos are brought up with like games journalists are bad. Remember Cuphead? And it's like one guy out of 1,000 game journalists in one video. It's like taking one random YouTuber or streamer and like watching them be bad at one game one time and being like, YouTubers, man, they suck at games. Like it doesn't make any sense. And every time, you know, people try to point out examples, like it's just, you know, some people are good at some games, some people are not good at other games. Like it's like the general public. Some YouTubers and streamers are not going to be good at other games and other genres. Like this idea that game journalists are some sort of special category of bad at games is this meme that really does not have much basis in reality. And oftentimes we are given challenges, you know, well above and beyond what the general public has, you know, with resources they can lean on and, you know, streamers they can watch to see how a game plays and, you know, what they should be doing and stuff. We often don't have that in an early review period. So, and we have really, really big time crunches too a lot of the time. I don't know. If there's more, you can let me know in the comments. I will give you a couple of these, but I really think that many of my positions are being misinterpreted or straight up lied about, which is very frustrating. I know I've become sort of a controversial figure among, you know, certain crowds, and every time I show up doing anything, I'm going to get a lot of hate, especially on YouTube, especially on Twitter among certain circles of gamers. But I just want to like at least get out there what the actual truth is about this stuff. I know the people that give me shit are not going to watch this. I know a lot of you probably know this stuff, but you know, I'm not going to make a Google Doc of all this stuff. So I just wanted to make a video. And again, if there's any other memes I need to address besides, you know, touching grass and stuff and getting the other half, feel free to let me know, and we'll try to provide context for those too. But yeah. Anyway, if you made it through this whole rant, I salute you. I won't do this again for, I don't know, let's say another couple of years, but that's the holidays coming up. I'll do my, you know, this week at Tassie on Friday, probably take a break, and then I'll come back and I'll do more Path of Exile stuff once I, you know, give the end game more of a go. There's patches, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure all the Path of Exile folks will be happy to see me back. Yeah, but anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.